All right, welcome to Practify, the podcast where we go inside the minds of private practice owners who've successfully scaled their practice and are open to sharing the strategies and mindset behind their growth. Today's guest is someone whose journey is deeply personal and deeply inspiring. Andy Daly, also known as the Sugar Doctor, started her career as a lawyer, but after a life-changing diagnosis for her daughter, she followed her calling into nutrition and never looked back. Her story is one every practitioner can learn from, especially if you're trying to build a practice that aligns with your values and voice. Andy, welcome to Practify.
Thank you. And thanks for the introduction.
Of course, it's awesome to have you.
Lovely.
All right, Andy, let's take it back to the beginning because before the Sugar Doctor, before the press features and the thought leadership, you obviously started out in a completely different world, the legal world. Can
Yeah.
you walk us through that chapter of your life and what eventually pulled you towards nutrition and well-being?
Okay. Um, Even though I started my career, my early career was as a lawyer, I grew up in South Africa, and I was always a healthy person. My mother was very strict when it came to sugar, so she never allowed us to have sugar. And so I'm not saying that everyone should follow in her footsteps. I'm just saying that I've never really had a sugar addiction or anything like that, and I've always been healthy. So for me, it wasn't actually that it was such a radical transformation, career transformation, because I remember in South Africa in the 1980s, I was really inspired by Patrick Holford, his low GI diet and things like that. And I actually was living according to his principles when it came to sugar and balancing blood sugar levels. But what changed my career path was the birth of my youngest daughter. I had two elder daughters, so I knew exactly what mile steps she should have been achieving and when she should have achieved them. And I knew that there were some issues, something was wrong. And I began to question. Uh, I had lots of questions. Her intolerances to different smells and foods and her reactions. And I didn't have any answers in the medical profession. She was born with a squint and a dodgy eye, and I was always led to believe that she had muscle weaknesses and things like that. But there was always something, my gut feeling was that there was something more than that. And at the age of, I think it was about 5, she was she was diagnosed with a very mild form of cerebral palsy. And after that, she was diagnosed a few years later with severe ADHD and a form of autism. And during that time, while I had all the questions and the medical world wasn't really providing the answers, I was doing my own research into science and nutrition and trying to work out what I felt her issues were. And that's when a new world awoke to me, because even though I was always healthy, I had never really gone into the scientific explanations and the scientific world when it came to nutrition. And I never really knew that there is such a strong foundation for nutrition and health. And that's when I decided to change career and restudy and to call myself the sugar doctor, because I believe that sugar is the root cause of so much illness we see today. And when I say sugar, I mean fluctuating blood sugar levels, insulin, inflammation, big driver of chronic illness, and I've never looked back.
And when you made this transition, like obviously it was such a big jump, and you said it wasn't too difficult for you, but then again, you are still changing industry. So would you say there was a specific moment or experience that made you feel that like this is the work that I'm meant to be doing?
I do feel that I didn't feel that I was giving up anything, because I've always been a person who questions every single thing. And obviously, when you study law, you base, we look at case studies. We were involved in that world. We question things. We even question, the stories our clients are telling us. We delve deep into things. And that was always something which I was so good at. And so I didn't really feel it was such a change. And I think that once you're a lawyer, you're always a lawyer. And I don't feel, in fact, that I've given up that part of my life. I feel that I'm working side by side, nutrition and law, in all my questioning of things. And I don't feel it was something I gave up ever. I call myself a nutritionist and a lawyer.
Were there any voices or mentors that helped you believe in your new path?
Um, well, when I started looking into autism and nutrition, there was someone who inspired me a lot, and that was Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride. She was and is a Russian neurologist. She had an autistic son, and it was her who started looking at the importance of the gut and actually explaining why many children on the spectrum have a different composition of gut bacteria, why they have these cravings, which many of them do, for carbohydrates, for sugary foods, and things like that. And she was the one who inspired me. In fact, so that's Gut and Psychology Syndrome. She's the author of all those books. And I became a GAPS practitioner straight after I qualified. So I would say, along with many other people, she was my great source of inspiration.
And when you made that jump, when you first stepped into clinical practice, like what did your work look like?
So when I always thought that maybe I would specialize in the gut and psychology. Um, but in the early days, I was really dealing with all different types of chronic illnesses, because when people come to see us as nutritional therapists, they've kind of exhausted the medical world, and they come with all sorts of problems and health issues which nobody can help them with. So it wasn't just mental health, but as I say, when I call myself the sugar doctor, inflammation, fluctuating blood sugar levels, high insulin levels drive all chronic illness, including mental illness. So what I began to realize was that the gut is really core to every system in the body. We have the gut skin axis, the gut mind, the gut brain, gut heart. And I realized then in the early days that by attending to the gut and by dealing with issues gut related, one could actually help people a lot. So you would have to strip it down to the basics, because especially in those days when I started, to tell somebody who had chronic fatigue or an autoimmune condition that you thought it had to do with the gut, you were thought of as some kind of conspiracy theorist. But today, there's lots of evidence supporting that.
A lot of practitioners struggle with confidence early on in their journey. Would you say you experienced that too?
We were told in the early days that obviously nutritional therapy is a complementary therapy. It's really important that we work with a client's medical practitioners, and that we never treat. We never hold ourselves out as treating a condition, which, being a lawyer, I'm always very conscious not to tell people I treat. I try and identify the root cause of issues, and I try and go back to basics, and I try not only to manage symptoms, but I can never say that I treat conditions, I address them. So in the early days, we were taught to correspond with a client's doctors, GPs, And I felt very nervous in those days to write a letter to a client's GP, especially when it came to complicated conditions like autoimmune conditions, and to ask for the GP's help. But now it's very well accepted that we play a very fundamental role in a client's health. And I find it very, very useful now to write a letter to a client's GP, especially when it comes to asking for certain tests to be done in this country by the NHS, because our work is not insured and some of the testing we do is very expensive. So I did find I was quite nervous in the beginning doing that and quite intimidated by the medical profession. But if I have one word of advice to new practitioners out there, it's don't be. You'll be absolutely amazed when you write a letter to a client GP, how thankful they are that you've written the letter and how supportive they are. And I've had GPs do big do a lot of testing, especially when it comes to serum blood tests, which could cost £300 or £400.
You obviously made the leap, stepped into clinic, and obviously started to find your footing. But something about gut health really stood out for you, not just as a niche, but as a doorway to deeper transformation. So let's talk about how you began to crack the code on gut-driven change and how that's kind of shaped the way you help others today. So why do you think so many clients and practitioners get stuck chasing symptoms instead of addressing root causes?
Because I think it's still very hard for practitioners and clients to comprehend the association, the enormity of the association between the gut and other systems in the body. And I personally have worked out through my clinical experience that there is this connection, because when a person comes to me, I've had clients with eczema, with rosacea, with acne, for example, who've had also, they've come to see me, and when the client sees me and says, I'm coming to see you about my eczema or my rosacea or some kind of autoimmune condition, I have a nutritional therapy questionnaire, different questions about different systems in the body. And I'm always conscious of the fact that that section, which deals with symptoms in the gut, almost every symptom is going to be ticked. So I see that connection. And I can usually, many people have, well, about 70% of people who have IBS, and I have to say so many people have IBS, have got SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And it's quite difficult to deal with SIBO, but if people are really chronically ill, they really are determined to do it. And I have seen even so many hormonal improvements, systemic everywhere, once we've dealt with the gut. So I can just say really that I guess in the early stages of my career, it probably would not have been as easy for me to comprehend the importance of the gut as it is now, because I've seen it in my clinical practice. I've seen that it's all about the gut. Almost every chronic illness is, you can help people by dealing with the gut.
And that on that note, what do you think helped you move beyond protocols and allowed you to start seeing the bigger picture when it comes to gut health?
So when you say beyond protocols, so I have a different protocol for every different client, because everyone's unique and everyone's response to different things is unique. And whereas I might, for instance, suggest certain antibacterials to deal natural antimicrobials to deal with certain bacteria in the gut. Some might help some people, some other people might react quite badly to those antibacterials. So I've never really had a standard protocol for everyone. Like I don't have a standard SIBO protocol. I try certain things which have worked in the past, but if they don't work on that person, I try something else. So it's not like It's very individual. It's very personalized. So I've never really had a set protocol for a set issue. I work with the client. We discuss things. Also, sometimes it's very hard for a client to go cold turkey and to give up everything they have to do, for instance, in SIBO. So we take it small steps. So I'm never really working beyond protocols. I always have my own protocols, which I negotiate with a client to make it workable. Otherwise, if it's not workable, if the client, some people will say to me, for instance, I still want to socialize. I still want to go out to restaurants. They've got SIBO and they're on really strict diets. And I say, well, go to the restaurant, take a photo of the menu, or take a photo of the menu before you go, and I'll tell you exactly what you can have in the restaurant. But I don't want to say to people, well, you can't go out anymore. And even when it comes to alcohol and skin issues and SIBO, there are times when I'll tell them exactly what alcohol they can have if they've got a special occasion or things like that. So I am working with the clients, forming our own protocols to enable them to do what they have to do. Sometimes it takes longer.
You talk about making nutrition feel almost sustainable as opposed to it being restrictive. What does
Yeah.
that look like in practice?
So obviously, sometimes it requires. Sometimes I have clients who really do have sugar addictions, which I completely understand. Sugar is very addictive. And for me to say you have to cut, I mean, I found this out with my own daughter because she's autistic. I'm still a long way from helping her because I try, we go through stages and then it's amazing. And then she falls off the bandwagon, if you like, whatever you want to call it. But there are certain people you can't say just give up sugar. I mean, people don't really understand sugar. When I say sugar, I'm talking about all these refined carbohydrates and things like that. So you have to say to that person, well, I know that you're going to want something sweet at nighttime, so have your 1 or 2 squares of dark chocolate. You just can't, like I said before, be too restrictive. Otherwise, that person's just not going to cope. I have to have a conversation with that person and say exactly what you feel that you wouldn't be able to do without in your diet. Okay, let's see what we can do so that you can have that and you can look forward to having that. And eventually clients will feel so well on whatever protocol I've given them. I do work really well with my clients I cook all the time. I'm a bit of a foodie. So I like to give them meals that they look forward to so they don't feel deprived. Because if they do, it's just not going to work. So yes, I do want them to enjoy the food that they're eating, and I want them to be able to slowly transition so that it's not all or nothing. Because I think that's the only way things can work. Whether it's weight loss, a lot of people on these Mounjaro, Wegovy, and they find it hard. They have the weight loss, and then what? So, if they were even working with those kind of people and saying to those kind of people, while you're on the weight loss drugs, try and eat nutritious meals so that when you're off them and just manage, well, they do manage portion control, but try and enjoy healthy food because it really can be really delicious. And you can feel, I think, as long as you're feeling fulfilled and satisfied, you can maintain that.
What's one thing that you wish more practitioners knew about the real power of gut work?
That gut issues can be resolved. I do think that's out there. So I'm not sure which practitioners you're talking about. I mean, us nutritional therapy practitioners, we're all quite aware of the fact that, everything is about the gut and that we can help people heal their gut or deal with IBS. Out there still in the medical fraternity, when people have gut issues, they diagnosed with IBS and they're told there's nothing we can do. It's an umbrella term for a whole lot of different things. And basically, once you've got IBS, you've got it. I mean, some gastroenterologists will put clients on a FODMAPs diet. They'll say, you've got IBS, which is aggravated by these foods, which are all healthy foods, by the way: broccoli, cauliflower, onions, garlic. We need all those foods for detoxification. So a person can't go off those foods, shouldn't go off those foods forever because they're worried about their IBS symptoms. They, yes, should avoid them while they heal the gut, because it can be healed. And then they should slowly introduce these foods again because they are so important. So what I wish practitioners, especially out there in the medical world, would tell clients who've got IBS that it can be resolved. It's not a lifelong diagnosis. It shouldn't be considered as like a chronic illness. I mean, most chronic illnesses can actually be dealt with. But anyway, there's so many today. But I don't think people should think they need to live with IBS. They should try and deal with it because they can.
All right. Time for a quick fire game, which I like to call complete the sentence.
Yes.
I'll start the sentence, you finish it. No overthinking, like just say whatever comes to mind, all right?
Yeah.
Cool. The one food I'll never give up is?
Protein. I like chicken.
The biggest myth about gut health is?
That it can't be resolved.
When I hear the word detox,
I think myself of detoxification pathways and about different variations in different genes which affect detoxification. I don't think of quick detox fixes because those don't work.
Before a client session, I always
ask them to fill out my nutritional therapy questionnaire, and I go through it. It takes me about an hour before I see them, so that when I see them, I have read through all different blood tests and I know quite a lot about their health issues before we start the conversation.
One thing I wish more nutritional therapists would stop doing is?
Possibly giving protocols which are too strict.
If I could go back and give myself one piece of advice, it would be?
At the beginning of my profession, probably not to be so nervous of corresponding with GPs because it's very helpful.
All right, we've got two more. So the second last one, what most people get wrong about sugar is?
That it's not just a cube that you put in your tea.
And then finally, the one supplement I recommend more than any other is?
I really like bromelain for inflammation. There's so much inflammation going on at the moment. So many people have mast cell activation, so many inflammatory illnesses. And bromelain, which is derived from the pineapple plant, is incredible when it comes to inflammation.
All right, there we go. So Andy, one thing that really stands out about your work is how clever and how clear and bold your message really is. You've obviously built a brand that's instantly recognizable. So I'd love to explore how that message really came to life and evolved, and how you've built something that not only gets results, but actually stands out. So first things first, let's just start with the name. How did the name The Sugar Doctor come to life?
At the time that we were asked to think of a brand, when it came to qualifying, sugar was beginning to be implicated in all of the chronic illnesses we're seeing today, but it was really very early stages in that. But I was looking at other names, and as I said, I was always very influenced by Patrick Holford, who since the 80s, who's the food doctor, and somebody called the lunchbox doctor. Her name is Jenny Teacher. She came to talk to us during our lectures once. And I just love that doctor. There are some people I have to, who've said to my social media, how can you hold yourself out as a doctor? I have never held myself out as a medical doctor. And being a lawyer, I was very conscious when it came to registering the trademark that obviously I've said to you, we can't hold ourselves out as being medical practitioners. We can't treat illnesses. And I was very conscious of that when I called myself the sugar doctor. But I wanted to attract people's attention. I wanted people to know that I'm out there for them, and that sugar to me has got a much wider connotation than just that little cube that you put in your tea. It's everything that causes inflammation, which is the root cause of all the processed foods out there. They have so much sugar in them. It's all these refined carbohydrates, everything that causes insulin levels to fluctuate, blood sugar levels. So I know that the average layman doesn't really know that, but in the early days, I was attracting people who were addicted to sugar. They were seeing, and from all over the world, who were having problems with sugar addictions. And then, obviously, so many other different chronic illnesses. So that's why I wanted to attract a broad range of people. And as I say too, it's all about the gut, blood sugar levels, insulin, inflammation. So I did attract, it's very wide, even though it doesn't sound like it. It encompasses a lot of different health conditions.
Was there ever a time where you hesitated to take such a bold stance around sugar specifically?
In the early days, I still was thinking sugar doctor, and I did have many people out there who were even medical practitioners who were very skeptical of me because as I say, I've made it very clear everywhere that I'm not, I can never be held to account by my professional code because what I do is very professional. But in the early days, but not so much anymore. I was never sorry, but it was a bold step, as you say, calling myself the sugar doctor in those days. Today, it's very widely accepted that all of these foods cause health issues, but it wasn't then.
And then just looping back to what you mentioned about the name, the sugar doctor, actually helped you attract a very specific type of client or patient. Do you feel like having a clear message has made it easier to attract the right clients?
Yes, I do think it's really important for practitioners when they're starting out to try and think about what they. But let me say this: I first decided to call myself the sugar doctor because sugar was beginning to be implicated as it was. But I don't think I ever envisaged that I would attract as many people as I have in relation to all different kinds of health issues. So I do think when you're starting out to think very carefully for practitioners about how they brand themselves and what they want to do, because I do think it makes a big difference. I've had people from all over the world find me because I'm the sugar doctor. So I think give it some thought. People should really give it a lot of thought. I do think it helps to brand yourself in the right way.
If a practitioner listening, just generally, is struggling to find their voice, where do you think they should start?
Well, I think social media, I think that, a lot of people don't really want to give free advice, but I do think it's really helpful because it's how you grow a following. And I do think it's quite important, but I also think that that's a way to attract clients by word of mouth. So I found social media, especially Instagram, the most effective way of attracting clients. That's why I think it's really important to brand yourself properly, to think of, a name that you can, and to stick to your principles very strongly.
All right, let's shift gears a bit because behind every successful practitioner is someone who's had to work through the doubt, fears, the identity shifts that comes with growing a business. So this part of the journey, I feel like it often isn't and doesn't get talked about enough, but it's often what makes the biggest differences. So, Andy, in the early days of your practice, did you ever feel unsure whether people would actually pay for your help and for you to support them?
I think that's yes, because I think that what's also really important is for your charges as a nutritional therapist to be reasonable because like I said to you, we're not insured, and there's a lot of testing that's involved. And so you know, often you can work out with the client, and obviously it depends on everything. When I see a client, if that client can afford to do testing, then we do it. But if not, we don't. And we can normally assume what kind of health issues or like what genetic SNPs they might have and things like that. But if you do want to do the testing, that is really helpful. It costs a lot of money. And so I do think, I mean, I have to be honest, it's not easy to make a lot of money as a nutritional therapist. I think you have to be a certain type of person. I mean, you have to want to help people, or you have to join a practice with other nutritional. They all work like in the NHS or in a doctor's practice. I work on my own. Being a sole practitioner is difficult. So I've never wished that it was something else and that I didn't go into this line of work, but I can't say it's easy. And there have been times when it's been even more difficult. And I have to say, even now, it's difficult since COVID, since people, many people since COVID find that they've had lots of kind of serious health issues. It's really difficult getting on top of those health issues. So sometimes, yeah, it's you have to be realistic and you have to manage a client's expectations. And you can't tell them you're going to give them a quick fix, and you also can't tell them that they're going to come away with all their health issues fixed. So it's very much work in progress for the client, and like I say, managing expectations.
And on that note of managing expectations, I've obviously dealt with a lot of practitioners myself, and I know this is very relevant to them, and I'm sure it is to you too. Do you ever feel pressure to prove your value by almost over delivering or working overtime? And if so, like, how did you manage to move beyond that?
I can honestly say I work overtime, and I haven't moved beyond that. Because I'm that type of person. But there are other people who, and I really admire them. They have the nutritional therapy questionnaire. They have a consultation with the client. They manage to do everything in the consultation, even send back a protocol, which they email straight away while they're having the conversation, the consultation, and that's how they work. So it depends on each individual practitioner. I am someone who takes a client's health issues quite seriously, and I really want to get them better. So I do work overtime. So I can't really say I've managed to be able to avoid doing that because I haven't.
Would you say it's a negative thing?
I don't think it's a negative thing. I mean, I'm a very positive person. And like I say, as long as you manage a client's expectation, with clients who come to you who are severely ill because they have all sorts of different chronic illnesses, you have to take it, you have to strip it. You have to you have to look at every single small steps, real small steps, because if you look at the whole big complex problem, like the many clients now who I have who are on immunosuppressants, steroids, or different other kinds of medications. So with those kind of people, it's really difficult because you can't recommend any kind of supplements that interact with these medications, and these medications have side effects, which is a lot of the time part of the health issue they're suffering from. A lot of the time it's the side effects from the drugs they're taking. But you can't be put off by that. You just have to say to yourself, I'm going to take small steps and hopefully, this client can get better. So yeah, you just have to think about the client and not about all the health issues and the medications the client is on. You just have to have tunnel vision sometimes.
Did you ever worry about what other practitioners or colleagues might think of you when you started doing things slightly differently?
No, I didn't. I don't really worry about those kind of things. My focus was always doing my best. I'm that type of person. So I definitely was never worried about what other practitioners were thinking. I was always really concerned to make my client feel that I was doing the best and to make my client feel sort of confident in my ability to do my best and achieve my best for their health interests. But I was never really worried about what other practitioners were thinking of me, to be honest. I don't know if
And
that's a good thing or a bad thing.
and what would you say to a practitioner who is just doing everything right, but still doesn't feel like they're getting anywhere?
I don't know, because I just think stay with it if you can. Obviously, if money's an issue and try and look at industries where they need nutritional therapists, where they pay you a salary, but don't be too despondent. Do your best. Ultimately, there will be times you want to give up. I have to be honest, because you just think you can't deal with certain health issues. Like I say, I'm still struggling to deal with my daughter's health issues. We have good times and we have bad times. You have to be realistic in that sense. You just have to know that it's a difficult profession to be in. It's not like the medical profession where you make a diagnosis and you look in your little book and you find a pharmaceutical drug to address the symptoms which are caused by that diagnosis. A tick and a tick. It doesn't work that way with us. It's very slow.
And would you say, as a practitioner, would you say like the difficulties and issues that a client is dealing with, do you feel like it ever takes a toll on you personally?
Yeah, I do sometimes. That's another piece of advice I would give to a client. A practitioner. Try and set boundaries. Try and not be too affected by your client's health issues. I am quite affected by them. I haven't really managed to set those boundaries. I always say I will, but it is hard for me anyway.
All right. And then I just want to change things up. Obviously, it's been COVID, like the years have just flown by, and something that's touched down on Earth recently is like this crazy concept of AI. What do you think of AI for someone like yourself, a nutritional therapist? Like, what are your thoughts on it?
I think with AI, it's a very useful tool, but you have to know exactly what questions to ask AI. You have to know how to direct the questions you're asking AI. I have tried to work with AI sometimes, and I think if you've got the benefit of the knowledge we have as nutritional therapists, you can see where it's going wrong, and not because it doesn't have the information, the technical ability to give you the information, but because it's being directed in the wrong way. So I think that it's a useful tool, but it's not the answer for everybody's health issue. You can't just Google or go and ask ChatGPT what they think about your different health issue or what protocol to give you for your health issue, because you need to know a lot more. And there are times when it will come back with an answer. My daughter, for instance, is studying at Roehampton. She's doing a BSc in nutrition. And sometimes she goes and asks ChatGPT some questions to help her with. They're allowed to, but they've always got to, they've got to change the words and things like that. And often I said, that's completely wrong. I mean, she'll come to me and say, look what ChatGPT said to me about my essay. I said, nah, you have to go back. That's not the answer. And so you have to be very careful. I mean, who knows what's going to happen, in 5 years from now. But I do think that it's a tool, but you have to be very careful to use it. You do need the guidance of somebody who's had years of experience, because AI can never learn that. I don't think.
Do you think it could progress to that? Like,
I don't know. I mean, who knows what it's going to progress to? It might. I would like to think that, our kind of expertise, there's an emotional contact you have with your client. You need to see them face to face. You need to delve, like I said, on asking questions. You kind of need to dig deeper when a client comes to see you, and you really need to find out the whole story. You need to go back into the client's history to see if there's a trigger. And I guess sometimes if a person wants to be totally honest with ChatGPT, but the ChatGPT is not going to direct the client that far back. It's not going to see where it should prod and which direction it should go. Like, is there cortisol? Was there a traumatic event? Was there, I'm sensing that the death of a father had this impact. I mean, it's very hard for ChatGPT to see that, but could it one day? Maybe.
actually. All right, Andy.
Potentially, we don't know.
Yeah, it's scary
Yeah.
times. But
Yeah.
anyways, before we wrap up, I'd love to give you a moment to share what you're currently offering and how listeners can stay connected with your work. So, what kinds of support are you currently offering for people struggling with gut or hormone issues?
Well, I have one-to-one consultations, and I do, since COVID, actually, a lot of my work is Zoom. So I used to see people in my clinic here, but it's just so much easier to do it by Zoom, because if I have clients from different parts of the world, obviously that makes sense, and also different hours. So I do offer one-to-one consultations on Zoom, and then follow-up protocol. Oh, we play it after the first consultation, play it very much by ear, whether the client wants to see me again, whether if it's a SIBO-related issue and they really want to deal with their gut, that's 3 months. So I offer that. I give free tips, as you know, on my Instagram, thanks to Gilad's team. I have a presence on Instagram. And I do find that people message me on Instagram, they contact me by email, and for a little bit of advice, which I often give one off. But otherwise, it's one-to-one consultations by Zoom.
And on that note of people connecting with you and staying in touch, where exactly can people connect with you online or potentially follow your work?
Yeah, they can connect with me online. My email address is on my social media, on my Instagram. So that is the best way I find I'm dealing with people, not really through my website. So many people email me from my email, which is on my Instagram. They find me on Instagram, and then they email me or they message me.
Awesome. And then just before we wrap up, we're going to play a quick game. It's just 5 questions. All you're going to say is true or false. No reasonings whatsoever. Just one word
Okay.
answers. All right.
Yes.
All right. Bloating after meals is just part of being human.
No. False.
You can't heal your gut without giving up gluten, dairy, sugar, and joy.
False.
A low FODMAP diet is a forever plan.
False.
If a client isn't compliant, it means they don't want it badly enough.
False.
you must test before you treat, otherwise you're guessing.
False.
All right, there we go. Andy, thank you so much for joining us, for your honesty, your
Thanks for
insights,
having
and
me.
of course, and the work that you do to help people feel safe in their bodies again. So if you're listening and you want to connect with Andy, learn more about her work and what she does, you'll find all the links in the show notes below. Or you can contact her via email, which you'll find on her Instagram page at SugarDoctorUK. And then again, if this episode made you think, laugh, or reflect, send it to another practitioner who needs to hear it. Be sure to follow Practify for more real conversations with people like Andy doing meaningful work in private practice. And we'll catch you in the next one.